for tuning in to Business Daily, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Lee Ji-yoon. Before we get started, let's first get a quick check on today's highlights. Korea's biggest shopping and sales event is set to kick off tomorrow, featuring huge discounts and various cultural programs to promote tourism. Starting October 1st, the IMF will include the yuan in its basket of currencies, seen as a milestone in Beijing's efforts to globalize the Chinese currency. We take a look at what this means not only for China, but also for Korea. Korea's ranking in global competitiveness remained unchanged for a third year in a row. According to the World Economic Forum, the country's economic fundamentals are strong, but there is still work to be done in other areas. Our Kim Min-ji starts us off.
Korea has placed 26th on the World Economic Forum's Global Competitive Index, keeping its spot in the survey of 138 countries for a third straight year. Switzerland topped the list, followed by Singapore, the United States, and the Netherlands. Neighboring Japan ranked 8th, while China was 28th. The annual report released on Tuesday says Korea has shown improvement in its macroeconomic environment, but this was offset by a decline in the nation's education and health sectors. In fact, the country's macroeconomic conditions ranking rose to third place from 5th, while its footing and social infrastructure moved up 3 notches to 10th. Korea's ranking in corporate innovation and efficiency remained unchanged at 22nd place. But the country still lags behind advanced nations when it comes to labor efficiency and financial market maturity, dragging down its competitiveness overall. With the ongoing disputes over the adoption of a performance-based wage system, Korea's cooperation between labor and management ranks near the bottom at 135th place. The soundness of its banks also sits at a lowly 102nd. In the category of health and elementary education, Korea saw its ranking fall 6 notches to 29th, while in higher education and training, it dropped 2 steps to 25th. But some do question the reliability of the report. In a business environment survey by the World Bank, Korea comes in 4th place. That's because the World Bank's rankings are based entirely on quantifiable data, while the WEF's rely more on surveys, meaning it's more difficult to make accurate comparisons between the countries surveyed. To boost its competitiveness, Korea has vowed to swiftly implement structural reforms and restructuring in the industrial sector, in addition to encouraging innovation and economic efficiency. Kim Min-ji, Business Daily.
And today is the second day of a subway and railway strike here in Korea. Passenger services so far appear to be running relatively smoothly, but freight train services are taking a hit as the government calls for an end to the walkout. Our Lee Min-young reports.
Korea's subway and railway workers are in the second day of a strike against the government's adoption of a performance-based pay system. It's the first subway and railway strike in 22 years. According to an estimate released by the Transport Ministry on Wednesday, nearly 40% of Korail workers are participating in the walkout, while subway companies' labor unions had a high participation rate. Almost half of all workers with Seoul Metro, which operates subway lines 1 through 4, and 1/3 of the workers with Seoul Metropolitan Rapid Transit, which runs subway lines 5 through 8, have walked off the job. Even with the walkout, subway and rail services ran as usual during rush hour on Wednesday morning, and subway companies have vowed to keep services at normal levels during the morning and evening commute. Off-peak subway services will run at about 80% of normal capacity, and regular train services will only run at 60%, but KTX bullet train services will operate at the usual levels. The Seoul city government had announced Tuesday that it had enough temporary workers to fill the gaps left by striking workers, and the city plans to dispatch hundreds more to subway stations this week. Freight train services took a direct hit from the strike, triggering concerns about a massive logistical disturbance. Freight operations have dropped to 26% of normal levels, and the shipping volume has shrunk to less than half of normal capacity. Korea's finance minister on Wednesday called the ongoing strikes, including a walkout by unionized workers at Hyundai Motor, selfish and called for them to end, saying the general public will be affected. Korail has dismissed 100 workers who it says led the walkout and announced that it is considering whether to take disciplinary action against other strike participants. Lee Min-young, Business Daily.
The Kim Young-nan Act, or Korea's anti-corruption law, is in effect as of this Wednesday. Now, the change is keeping many people on their toes, but now without hope for improvements down the line. Our Sun Se-min has more.
It's the most extensive anti-corruption measure ever imposed by the government. Commonly known as the Kim Young-nan Act, the improper solicitation and graft law targets some 4 million government officials, teachers, journalists, and their spouses. The law is commonly known by its 3, 5, 10 price cap. If caught being treated to a meal over 30,000 won, gifts over 50,000, and cash gifts for weddings and funerals over 100,000 won, those subject to the law will face criminal penalties. It's the first lunch break with the anti-graft law in place, and already around these government offices, a number of public officials are either opting for a cheaper option for lunch or deciding to go Dutch. With such heavy punishments in place, some are concerned about the consequences, but many also welcome the move.
People will be more at ease, and I hope to see the law put its roots down so things are easier and established by the time my grandchildren start going to school.
It was something we had to eradicate from society, but I really hope the economic burden on restaurants and the service sector isn't too great.
That same burden is also of concern to many others. Korea Economic Research Institute estimates that the local economy will face losses of some $10.6 billion. And Korea Rural Economy Institute says the agriculture and fisheries industries may see sales tumble by over $820 million each year. But economists say when you look at the bigger picture,
if Korea's corruption perceptions index nears the OECD average, the country will see an annual 0.2 percentage point improvement in economic growth.
Currently, that index for Korea is at 56 points, while the OECD average at 67.2. And as the law takes effect, hopes are high that the first aggressive step towards uprooting bribery and corruption will eventually help create a more transparent society with more robust economic potential. Sun Se-min, Business Daily.
Korea's 3 main mobile carriers have restarted distributing the Samsung Galaxy Note 7 to customers who pre-ordered the device. Around 20 to 30% of the 400,000 Galaxy Note 7s ordered in advance in Korea have yet to be distributed. The 3 telecom companies, SK, LG U+, and KT, are also preparing to sell new Note 7 smartphones on and offline in the country starting October 1st. Samsung is extending special offers to pre-order users, including a free fitness wearable, the Smart Band Gear Fit 2, through October 15th. The company released its latest phablet on August 19th, but announced a massive global recall on September 2nd amid reports of overheating batteries. If you're looking to get some shopping done, this might be the perfect time to loosen those purse strings. Korea's largest shopping event is set to kick off tomorrow, offering plenty of good deals. And our Lee Ju-young tells us what's up for grabs.
Just one day remains until the country's biggest annual shopping festival, dubbed Korea Sale Festa, kicks off. Over 150 local retailers and more than 750 brands across the country will join the event, offering discounts as high as 80%. A chance to win a sweepstakes event worth a record $1 million is up for grabs as well. Lotte Department Store said the top prize includes an apartment in Seoul worth $640,000 and an additional $365,000 in a lump sum pension payment.
All customers with a receipt from the day can sign up for the event.
What's different about the festival this time around is that major manufacturers and online shopping malls that did not participate last year are joining in. For one, Hyundai Motor will grant up to a 10% discount on its top car models, while Samsung Electronics said large home appliances will be sold at half price. The government said it's spearheading the shopping festival once again as it hopes to see domestic consumption climb like it did last year.
The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy said a similar event increased gains in the nation's private consumption by 0.2 percentage points in the fourth quarter and pulled up the country's GDP growth by 0.1 percentage point. The 33-day event, running through October 31st, also aims to lure in foreign tourists, particularly Chinese visitors, as nearly 600 million are likely to hit the road during the National Day holiday, spanning the entire first week of October. Korea Tourism Organization projects about 250,000 Chinese tourists will visit Korea during the 7-day period. Lee Ju-young, Business Daily.
The Chinese yuan officially enters the basket of currencies in the IMF's special drawing rights come Saturday. With this, the yuan becomes the first from an emerging market to join the IMF basket in its bid to bolster its stance as a global reserve currency. So what does this mean for China, and what kind of impact will it have on the Korean economy? For more on this, we're now joined by Arirang News Hwang Ji-hye in the studio. Hi, Ji-hye.
Hi, Ji-yoon.
All right, so it's been a while since the IMF made that decision. So give us a recap of what status the yuan will be gaining in October.
Sure. Late last year, the International Monetary Fund agreed to include the yuan or renminbi to its reserve currency basket known as the Special Drawing Rights or SDR. The SDR, as I said, is a basket of currencies used by the IMF as an international reserve asset. It was created in 1969 to supplement its member countries' official reserves. So basically, it helps provide liquidity to the global economic system, especially during financial crises. Roughly 200 billion SDRs, equivalent to about 285 billion US dollars, had been created as of March this year. Now, once the addition of the yuan takes effect on October 1st, it will join the US dollar, the euro, Japanese yen, and British pound in the currency basket with about 11% weighting. That for the dollar will stand at slightly over 40%, for the euro 30%, and for the yen and pound less than 10%, respectively. It's the first change in the SDR's currency composition since 1999, when the euro replaced the German mark and French franc.
So what does this mean for China? I mean, there was a lot of hype when this inclusion was first announced, right?
Right. And China has been striving to integrate into the global economic system dominated by the United States, Europe, and Japan. And the SDR inclusion is an acknowledgement of the progress the country has made. When the IMF announced the yuan's addition late last year, Christine Lagarde, the managing director of the organization, said that it's a recognition of the reforms in China's monetary and financial systems. Many central banks follow the SDR in measuring their reserves, so the yuan's addition effectively says that the IMF considers the currency to be safe, reliable, and freely usable. The Global Financial Organization reviews the composition of the basket every 5 years. The yuan was rejected in the 2010 review. The IMF then said the currency did not meet necessary criteria.
So this is a decision, a key milestone decision in the yuan becoming an international currency, but then China still faces criticisms over transparency.
Yes, and the currency inclusion in the IMF's SDR does not necessarily mean that it can directly be considered a safe haven asset. The IMF said last week that China will need to keep improving transparency of its exchange rate. In fact, many experts do agree that the Chinese government has to be more committed to a freer yuan and pour in efforts to make their policies more predictable.
So at this point, I'm wondering, what kind of impact will the inclusion of the yuan on the global currency basket have on the Korean economy?
It won't prompt any imminent changes in the global financial market. Rather, it holds a symbolic meaning that underscores China's growing financial and economic weight. So we won't be seeing any major impact on Korea either. Still, experts say Korea could move to diversify its reserves from dollar to yuan, and this might alleviate potential exchange rate volatility and related risks. Because the yuan's inclusion in the long term is a factor that will strengthen the currency, experts said, it's likely to have a positive impact for Korean exporters.
In the long run, a stronger yuan will most likely result in a weakening Korean won, and this would improve outbound shipments to China. Direct trade settlements in the yuan will also lower risks stemming from exchange rate volatility.
But of course, experts do caution against too much dependence on China, as is the case with trade as well. So this is something Korean policymakers will want to keep a close eye on.
All right. Thank you so much for that report today.
Thank you for having me.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. Until then, goodbye.